noise!
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I'm pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership musician, composer, and producer Mico Lane, otherwise known as Microwave. Having grown up in a musical family and performed in bands from an early age, in the mid-1980s, he found himself being mentored by none other than funk bass legend Bootsy Collins. Lane, as Microwave, in 1987 released the album Cooking from the Inside Out, in which not only Bootsy figured prominently, but also fellow funk stars Bernie Worrell, Maceo Parker, and Catfish Collins. Lane also collaborated with Bootsy on projects by Trouble Funk, Herbie Hancock, and George Clinton. Also influenced by Prince and Roger Troutman, Lane went on to work with many other noteworthy artists, as well as score films. Most recently, he released the funky EP called The Definition, and he plans to put out more material in 2021. Michael, thank you for joining me. How you doing?
Oh, man, it is a pleasure to be here. It is a pleasure. The pleasure is all mine. Good to be here. Yes.
It's mutual, believe me. Thank you for making the time, and glad we can finally connect.
Yes, sir. We are good.
So, and good to see you well, all things considered.
Hey, and that's a good thing to say now. We were losing so many and so fast, and people are just getting sick from this thing, and you just got to, I just want to throw it out there. Just stay home. Stay out of the way as much as you can. That's what I do. Let's get it done. Wear a mask and be done with it. That's where we are. But hey, man, it's a pleasure. Like I said, I'm a fan of the show, man, and I'm proud to be on here. It's a proud moment for me, and thank you again for having me.
My pleasure. And where are you coming to us from today?
I'm actually in Illinois. It's funny. I'm back where I started, and Bootsy came to Peoria, Illinois, and picked me up in basically 1983. He picked me up and moved me to Cincinnati. It was I remember it was like January of '83 because it was right after my birthday. My birthday is the end of December, and in Peoria, Illinois, he came and took me to Cincinnati. I've been gone ever since then until the pandemic started. Then I came back home. So like I've been on tour. So yeah, I'm back in the house I started in.
Wow.
thing.
So
Yeah.
bracing with the cold again, I guess.
Yeah, man. I've been all over the place. Vegas was a short stay, so it was definitely hot there. Overseas, we did Hong Kong, Japan, Philippines, you name it. I've lived all over. It's been 35 something years or something like that. And, the cold doesn't bother me as much as it did when I lived here back in the day, because back in the day, I had to deal with the cold. I had to deliver newspapers. So, right now I don't do any of that. So it's all good. Where you at? You said, where are you
Well,
exactly?
I'm outside Charlotte, so it's kind of cold. It was in the 20s
Yeah, yeah.
today, but
Yeah.
nothing like
No.
Illinois.
We were 18 degrees yesterday.
Yeah. Oof.
That was a heat wave. That's what it
Well,
was.
that's okay. You're used to heating things up, so
Oh yeah, it's the wave, man. Mm-mm-mm. There you go.
So coming from Illinois, Champaign, I believe.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
How did that kind of shape your musical roots? And what was it like growing up in a musical family as you did?
Well, I'll start with this. In the town of Champaign, there's a college there called the University of Illinois. It's a pretty major college. And back in the 70s, if during the Vietnam War, not that I was old enough for that, but I knew what was going on. That college in Champaign, the U of I, if you went to that college, if you were enrolled in that college, it made you draft exempt. So all the musicians from Chicago and all the other places came to that city to go to school, so that they wouldn't have to be drafted or dodge the draft, which in turn developed a really rich musical city, all types of music. I mean, REO Speedwagon is from there, just being such a small town. Cheap Trick is from around the corner, 40 miles up the road. The group Champagne, who we'll get more into them, one of the groups that I produced when I was there, when I went back there. So there was Jack McDuff was there. There was always the Bonnie Blair, is that her name? Am I saying that right? Is that, maybe that's a skater. The number one bluegrass girl, what's her name?
Not Bunny Raitt.
No, out of bluegrass.
Not sure.
Yeah, well, the number one, this girl's one, it's going to come to me in a minute, but she's from there. There's a lot of music that comes out of there. The group, I don't know if you know the group Semisonic, you remember, it's a rock band. They had a song out called Closing Time. I Know Who I Want to Take Me Home. The drummer was my drummer. So there was always music coming out of that town. Now, my dad was a drummer. I'm going to tie you into a couple other things. His brother was a drummer. His brother's name was Johnny Boy. You've heard this name. I'll come back to Johnny Boy. You probably heard it as Uncle Johnny Boy. So that's my dad's brother. My dad's dad was a saxophone player. All of the musicians were all over my family. My uncle was a guitar player. My other uncles, the guys that weren't really my uncles, that were really close to my family, that we called uncles, they were all musicians. So all I ever knew was musicians, singers, musicians, from Jack McDuff to all these guys around me. And so it was inevitable that we would become musicians. And at some point in our life, I'd say maybe 10, 11, my dad came to me and my two brothers, which was Ricky and Chris, and asked us what instrument we wanted to play. It wasn't like, do you want to play an instrument? It's like, which one do you want to play? So we chose, Ricky, he's the oldest. He had already been playing drums for a minute. He's probably 11 then. So I chose guitar. And my brother Chris chose keyboards, and eventually we switched, so he ended up playing a lot of guitar on everything, and I ended up playing keys and singing, and we formed a band. And, the whole thing, if you'd walk down our street, there were so many bands rehearsing in the garage. There's a band here. There's us. We were called Instant Cool, Gemini. There's another band up the street. My cousins, Tony's and Eric's and Ebony Love, whatever the name was. I can't remember all the names. But there was just so much music always around me and in my family and in this city. So it was just really rich. And we all got to perform in the park. And people still remember that stuff. as if it was yesterday in that town, just for it to be so small and have so much music. And all of the bigger artists would always come there and perform. And once the Shy Lights came and performed, and I ended up auditioning for them. They needed a keyboard player. And I went to Chicago and auditioned. Me and my brothers drove up there. And I went and auditioned, and I actually got the gig. But because I was so afraid to be there, I was 18 then, I was so afraid to leave my city, my small town, and be in a big city like Chicago, I turned it down. So that's my musical history. Now I'll get back to that name, Johnny Boy. We used to go to Cincinnati, Ohio. This is before I knew Bootsy anyway. I was 13. So we used to go to Cincinnati, Ohio on vacation because we had family there. I was going to visit my Uncle Johnny Boy. Uncle Johnny Boy had a son named Tiger. You know Tiger. And I remember one time we were there, and I said, Tiger was getting ready to go do a gig.
One of the most colorful interviews ever on this show.
I know, right? It was good. Double. You had to do that. You had to do a double on that one. You had to extend the interview or something, right?
yeah. He's a character with a capital C, but enjoyed him a lot. Yeah.
That's good. That is my true cousin. And I had saw him one time when he went. I made 13. I was like, "Where you going, Tiger?" He said, "I'm getting ready to go do a gig." I said, "Who you doing a gig with?" He said, "With Phelps and Bootsy." I said, "I don't know who that is." He said, "Well, we get ready to go play with Parliament or Funk." He said, "Funkadelic." He said, "We get ready to go play Funkadelic." I was like, "All right, man. Hey, y'all got any more of that chicken in there?" That was our family. You know what I mean? It's just we were all music all the time, and it just keeps going. My nieces now, my sister's kids, they're doing big things. One of them plays. She's been Beyonce's bass player for 7-8 years. You know, she still plays with us. Beyonce just stopped, and my other nieces play drums with T.I. and blues people, and it just keeps going. My sons, everybody's. We do music. We do music. That's what we do.
So, did you have any formal training, or was it just kind of picked up?
Well, we grew up lower middle class, but in a middle class neighborhood. So we had to fake a lot of things like we had some money. So we could afford for one of us to go take lessons. So we sent Chris to be trained as the guitar player. That made the most sense. So he'd come back and teach us what he learned. So we got free lessons. We learned theory through him, you know. And so that's the most formal training we had, but it was bootleg, but it worked. I couldn't tell you the name of any chords right now. You'd have to spell them out for me because I didn't really get into the theory. And I learned early in my writing career that it's good that I didn't know theory, because I think theory kind of messes you up as a writer because you start following guidelines. It's like,
sometimes it can keep you like in a box, right?
Yeah, exactly. And those boxes are good when you're getting paid, but you got to figure it out. So yeah, I not formally trained, but enough to understand where to go and where not to go, you know, musically. So yeah.
So when you were playing with your brothers, you know, what types of material were you typically playing? Like top 40 R&B stuff?
Top 40. Yeah. We were because we were a horn band. We had 4 horns. It was Tony, Reggie, Gary, and whoever the fourth one, Bodar or Ray or whoever it was, and Todd. And we'd have horns in the band. So we would do top 40 brass construction, confunction, average white band. And it's funny because a lot of these bands I ended up working with as I got older, it was a trip to me. It's like, wow. I mean, me and Felton's on speed dial in my phone, you know. It's like Barcades, Frank, you know, me and Frank used to hang out, man. It's like I grew up watching these guys, man. Now it's like, and we played a lot of KC. And one time, I think I was maybe I was 13. We modeled ourselves after the rhythm and dance and colors of KC and the Sunshine Band. And I swore I saw him in Springfield one time. I had to be 17. I said, one day I'm going to play with that guy. And I ended up touring with him on keyboards about 4 or 5 years ago. We did a
Wow.
whole South American tour. So did a lot of horn band stuff, lots of that. Just a lot of funk stuff. Yeah.
Was there anyone in particular that you sort of looked up to aside that was outside your family as sort of a before Bootsy as sort of like a mentor or somebody who you emulated or aspired to?
Larry Dotson. You couldn't tell me I wasn't Larry. when I started singing, I was Larry. You couldn't tell me. I cut my hair like Larry. I wore the clothes like Larry. I was but I never made any records that really sounded like him. As far as that went, that I thought he was the greatest entertainer, man, in this funk world. He would carry the Barcades. He would carry that group. They were there, but I really felt like Larry carried that group, and I ended up meeting him. Eventually, I still want to work with him. I always mention it. He's hung out with me at my gigs. He probably wouldn't remember me, but he's been right there. And one other situation, when I was 20, maybe 23, I heard this song called Body Talk. And I was like, who and what is that? I was living here in Peoria, and I'm like, I got to figure out who that is, and I figured out that it was The Deal. I went to the record store. I'm gonna turn this fan off real quick. It's starting to get a little chilly. So I went to the record store and I bought a cassette. The only cassette I've ever purchased in my life was that cassette. And I wore it out. There was Body Talk, there was Video Villain, and all those songs were just on that Just My Luck. And it was like, wow, these guys are amazing. I was like 22 years old, 23 years old. I said, this is everything that I feel in music in these guys. They sound like Prince. They sound like funk. The singer is just phenomenal. I love it. I love the arrangements. I love everything about this group. This is what I encompass as a musician. This is me. This is what, and I ended up meeting those guys. They were the first set of guys I met when I moved to Cincinnati. I didn't know that's where they were from. When I moved to Cincinnati, and they were pretty much like, "Hey, man, what's up? How you doing?" I was like, "Man, y'all The Deal." I was like, yeah, get away from me, little boy. I was like, "Okay, I'm cool with that with y'all. It's cool." And Bootsy has introduced me. It's like, "Man, this is Microwave. This is my new artist." She's like, LA was like, "Oh, okay, you cool with us then," and we ended up doing sessions with him. Me and Bootsy did LA actually produced a song on Bootsy called Body Tight, and I was there in that session. We were working. I think I was doing some keys, and that was the day that Bootsy named Babyface when Kenny walked in, like Babyface, and it stuck. So I'm sure you've heard that story. But ended up, as much as I liked him, I ended up being the lead singer of the group and one of the producers and writers on the later stuff. Carlos, who was the original lead singer, one of the original, because they had three lead singers. They had Babyface, D, and Carlos. Of course, Babyface left, so that left D and Carlos. And Carlos would run off and do his own thing a lot, And this group kind of reminds me of the story of Van Halen. Mm-hmm. I would be Sammy Hagar, and I'd come in. I'm the guy that's actually doing some music and have my own thing going on, but I'll come in and replace David Lee Roth until David Lee Roth wants to come back, and then we can never be. We've actually done shows together on stage. I'll jump on keys like Sammy would jump on guitar, So it's kind of that story. But it was like there was also a movie called Rockstar that was kind of like this guy that just watched this band, watched him like this, and then they pulled him up on stage and he became the lead singer. And so that all those things stem from me. You're asking about who I listened to growing up, and them, KC, Prince. I didn't really listen to Prince. I listened to Prince, but I felt like I came up with Prince. We both got in the game at the same time. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, man, let me listen to what this guy is doing. It was like, okay, he's hot. That's hot. I'm gonna try to figure out how he's doing this, but I don't want to copy him. You know what I mean? But I want to be different. I want to be different than Brass Construction. I want to be different than Confunction. I don't want to sound like the Barcades. I don't want to sound like that, but so on, or what was ever out then. Prince had his hand and his ear on that. It's like, I'm going to be different. But then I thought I was. Then I heard Roger Troutman. I was like, oh. That's it. let me find where I can get that tube at right there, because I wasn't playing it. And Roger came to Peoria and he performed, and I got to go backstage. Like, Roger, how do you make that sound? He's like, man, he said, let me tell you. You have to have all these scientists. They come in and they bring in chemists and a couple of construction workers and these people. I said, for real? He's like, no, man, I'm just kidding. You got to take this tube. You got to get this thing. You got to get this thing. Man, it's basically a horn from a PA system. I took our PA system. We were short one horn that day. It's like, I'm going to make this thing happen. More bounce it out. Plug that thing in, put that tube in. And I really didn't understand how to work it. But at that time, Guitar Player Magazine, you could go in there and I went to a back issue where Joe Walsh showed how to build one. It's like, okay, I got it. Because I was blowing in the tube. I thought I was doing it all backwards. So once I figured it out, it was on and popping, and I ended up just doing that and just getting really good at it. And forever, me and Roger were best buds. He always wanted me in his band, but I would never play in his band. He took half of my other members, but we were always cool, always. And when he passed, man, that messed me up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now both those guys are gone, but
yeah,
you can even hear the Troutmans doing some of that earlier on Sun's I Want to Make Love, Flick My Bick.
Yeah.
But of course, really got huge on More Bounce.
But,
did you ever get to see the Barkays? Did they perform in Illinois? Did you see Larry Dotson on stage, at a formulative age?
Yes. Yeah, I've always seen them. I'd go see them. I mean, I would see them. They come to Illinois, I'd see them there. I'd go to Memphis and see them. I'd see them wherever they were. If they were within grasp, I'm going, because that was my thing. I loved everything about them. That they were me. To me, and I'm gonna tell you another band that I loved, and you'll know why I like the Barkays when I say this. Mother's Finest.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a rock and roll city, which is good because I didn't get caught up in I only know R&B or I only know funk.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a city where guitars ran the city. Loud guitars. We had the best guitarists, Gary Richrath, Sink Rand. We had the best guitarists ever in that city, and they're still there. These guys come up, and so I was more on a rock, funk kind of Mother's Finest, which Larry encompassed that. He was the only guy with the long straight hair that would get out, with the tight pants.
Rockstar vibe.
Yes, he was that guy. And if you like my first album with Columbia, they let me put one rock song on there, but I used Drum Machine. It didn't come out like I wanted it to, but it's called All American Dream that me and Bootsy did. It was as rock as they were going to let me get, Now I go wherever I want to go with the music. So Barkays were great, man. Love seeing them.
Well, and Prince too definitely had that rock influence. A lot of the groups from the Midwest seem to have had that rock exposure too, which makes it so much more interesting. I think.
Yes. I'll tell you how much I was into P-Funk before I was part of it. I thought George and Bootsy were the same person. And it wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just I wasn't in it that deep. I was more, I feel like back in the day, and I think music does this thing. It brings people closer because back in the day, you had to choose where you were musically. Back in the 70s, if you were a funk dude, you were a funk dude. If you were rock, you were rock. If you were country, you were country. And I think part of that reason was because I call it the crate theory. You have a crate of albums, and you're only gonna get so much stuff in that crate, And when you start going through your records, you if you really like funk, you got George Clinton, you got Parliament, you got whatever funk record. They're all in that crate. These are real crates I'm talking about with these albums, and you have room. You might throw in a rock album, but that's not your thing. So we chose back then, if you were into music, you chose where you were, almost like a gang member. Like, yeah, I'm funk, man, I'm funk, I know that. Or I'm rock, or you know, and in school, it was the same thing. You were a jock, or there were a lot of boundaries you had to stay in back then. Now, things are so different because your crate is a playlist. It could be 50,000 songs. So I think people's musical palette is a lot more eclectic now. And I think it brought people together musically, you know, because now there's something to talk about between teenagers. You know, I can talk to my guy sitting next to me in class about music because I'm talking about something he's never heard of. I'm talking about the Barcades. He wants to talk about Van Halen or whoever was back then that he's listening to. And I'm like, we don't have a lot in common musically. So I think music kind of brought a commonality to man. And now, you know, I ask people, I ask younger people, I was like, what's in your iPod or whatever, your playlist? And they'll be like, well, I got a Brandy, I have a Cardi B, I've got Lisa Loeb, I've got this classical dude. So they'll listen to it. So I just think, you know, with me growing up, I grew up like that because I was cool with everybody. So I heard all of this music in my city. You know, our radio was straight 94.5 rock, pop music, period. On Sunday, we'd have Ernie Westfield for 2 hours. He played all the black music, and that's where we would hear it. And we were 2.5 hours from Chicago. We would ride through there, and we turn on, as soon as we get close enough to turn on the radio station, we're hearing all the new stuff. So there in Indianapolis, we're 2 hours from Nap and 2 hours from Chicago. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's where we were. Musically.
So, you know, a little while ago, you sort of jumped ahead to the Bootsy Encounter, and I want to work our way back to that. So,
okay.
You were, as I understand it, kind of doing something else primarily, and you had a manager, I think, that brought you guys together. Can you share how that took place?
That was here in Peoria. I was working at a basically nowhere. I was at a place, and my management ran the place, so they kind of gave me a job teaching little kids how to play piano. And they also had a like a small video company where they did like low budget videos for people. And the guy that set all of that up, Bill Waller, was from Cincinnati, and he knew Bootsy. And he's like, well, let's do a video with Bootsy. You at that time, like 23, 24, you couldn't tell me 2 Bootsy songs that weren't hit records, and I would have known. So I was like, okay, Bootsy coming up. All right. So he came up and he did the video, and I was his prop man. You know, I'd help him, you know, get things together, hold this, you know. Yeah, okay, you're looking good over there, looking good over there. And I was like, Bootsy, man, I got these tapes of some demos I did, so let me hear it. He heard them, and he's like, yeah, man, you coming to Cincinnati. And from there, man, I went. I gave it about 6 months to really get it together, you know, get everything put together and taken apart here in Peoria. And I moved into the house with him and his mom, but we were the only ones, and his sister lived downstairs. Huge house out on the farm or ranch. It was into the farm, now it's a ranch. And we were upstairs. He was in one room. I was across the hall in another bedroom. And we both had 4-track recorders. And we would just do music and just do tracks and let's write. One of the first things he said, let's just write, and let's write everything you can write. If you can think of it, write it. I don't care. Let's write rock, let's write country, let's write jazz, funk, R&B, slow songs, whatever you're going to write, let's write it now. And
well, hold up a second. I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry about that.
Okay.
But when you first met Bootsy face to face, what were you thinking? How did he impress you? What kind of presence did he have? What was he like? You know?
Well, because I didn't know much about his persona, his personality. He was just the coolest guy. I mean, he was fun. You would think you're going to meet Bootsy and you're going to get Oh yeah, Bobble, nice to meet you. Let's go to the party and kick it like this, Bobble. That's not what it was. It was microwave. Man, I'm digging what you're doing, man. Let's get in, let's get in, let's do this, let's do that, man. Let's get some stuff done, man. I'm liking that. Let me hear that. Oh yeah, I like that. This was all of the time with him. It was let's do music. Let's hang out. We hung out. I mean, we kicked it like brothers. Bootsy is 7 years older than me, but he brought me in as his little brother. I mean, that was our claim. This is my little brother. I was introduced by Bootsy, this is my little brother Microwave.
But obviously he found like something endearing about you to bring you into his life like that.
Well, same thing that happened with Sly Stone when I met Sly. I played with Sly for a hot minute. I bring one thing, and they all say it, everybody, because I've never done any drugs. I've never even smoked weed. I've done my share of alcohol, but Sly would look at me and go, I could have been you. If I hadn't got on these drugs, I could have been you. He said, I know I'm Sly, but you happy I could have been you. If you look on Bootsy's Party on Plastic album, in the credits, you'll see where he credits the people that helped him get off of drugs. And my name is in that set of people. He was off when I met him, but when you're with me, I'll give you another story that comes down to that, because I don't do drugs, but you would think, me coming from P-Funk, I'm high as hell. Gary Scheider. So, I mean, I'll go back to Bootsy, but I want to give you this because we're talking about that. Gary Scheider, I was in Tokyo. I'm sure we'll get to that part. I was gigging in Tokyo. I had a house gig there, and Gary, Bernie, everybody would come to those gigs, and Gary and Bernie were at one. And Gary, I had this long break between sets. It was like an hour and 15 minutes, and I lived 10 minutes away from the venue. And Gary came in one time, like, man, hey Mikey, that's all the guys at P-Funk call me Mikey. Hey Mikey, take me to the funk on where you go on break. You know what that means? Take me to get some dope. I was like, all right, we in Tokyo. So I grabbed Gary. I said, let's go. We jumped in a taxi. And we went to my studio, which was 10, 15 minutes away from the venue. And I handed him a guitar. He said, what a dope. I said, I just put it in your hand. And I started the track and put him in record. The song's called Lady Rose. He played through it nonstop. I said, okay, great. Just solo on through it. And I said, I'll fix all of that when you're done. After the fact, after he was done, we got back in the taxi and we were on our way back to the club. He said, thanks. Thanks, Mikey. I said, for what? He said, that's the best dope you could have got me. He said, thank you. He said, I can go. Now, 1998 was when that was. 97. I released the album. That album, the single is on YouTube. It's a video. I shot a video for it. Shot the video in 99, 98. But I released the song in 2000 or maybe 99. So when I went to edit it, I said, I need a shot of Gary. I need a shot of Gary Scheider in here where he was playing. And so I was just going to find something, maybe slow motion on YouTube and put it in there, or a picture. The line that he did on the record went, right? The first thing I went to, he was on a show with Bootsy, one of the last shows he did with Bootsy. And Bootsy was kind of like, Gary, go on out there, do what you do. By itself, no band. Same key, same tempo. He was already dead. He's already gone. I cried like a baby. I can't remember who I was talking to. I said, you won't believe what just happened. Gary left me this line so he could make it onto that song. That same key, same tempo, same rhythm. So I took that, and that's in the video. It was just the craziest thing I've ever seen. I always end up with stuff like that. With he just left it for me. It's like, wow. So I don't know where I was going before that. I was talking about Bootsy, but I got on that. So anyway, that's the drug thing. They a lot of the guys that were on drugs liked being around me because I wouldn't do the drugs. Mm-hmm. So me and Bootsy's relationship he really clung to me because I never was the guy going, man, let's go get high. No, I'm the guy going, man, let's go make another song. Let's go make more songs. Let's go make more songs. And I'm young as hell. I'm like, man, let's make music. Let's make songs. Let's make songs. Let's make songs. And so he dug that, and it kind of kept him going. He actually gave me a name. He used to call me Bobby, right? Bobby. And I was like, Bootsy, what? He said it's an acronym. I said, what do you mean? He said, you know, I got Bootsy's Rubber Band. Well, that's acronym is Bootsy's other brother's band, y'all. Because I had a band, he called him Bobby. So it was like we had fun, man. We had a lot of fun doing music, man.
Sounds like in a way you were sort of like a breath of fresh air, you know?
Absolutely. And I was happy to be that. And I'm always happy to be that for people, you know. And some people are a breath of fresh air for me, you know. So keep it.
So that was a huge thing for you. I'm thinking uprooting your life like that, basically, and going to do that.
It was organic. I'll just put it like that. You know, I'm 23. I'm in a town that can't handle me. You know, they can't handle me. I'm going to blow up. I gotta go. So this is the perfect place. And you know, I ended up in Cincinnati, out there for 7, 8, 9 years. I had children there. I had a family, several friends, and I had family there before I even went there. So, which never thought I would end up there, but you know, it was a beautiful thing. And my management ended up managing Bootsy. Part of Dana Davis, he ended up managing Bootsy, and so it was a big deal.
What was it like seeing Bootsy in the laboratory? You know, doing his thing and what he does.
That's funny. That's funny because it's like seeing Bootsy at the dinner table for me, because we were around each other so much. And Bootsy would, one of the things that he did, he'd give me the reins and just, I'd go in the studio with him, he'd be like, go. And he's gonna watch what I do. One time he handed me the space bass and said, play it. You played it on the demo. I'm like, huh? Yeah. So ended up playing. It was on a Herbie Hancock record. That's me on bass. Because he's not into it. I mean, he's into it, but he's not like, this gotta be Bootsy, it gotta be me. No, he wants you to get it. What it's like is like your big brother trying to get you put on. It's that. And he'll give it to you. But when he goes in, oh, he's going in. When he said, okay, let me get at it now, then you know Bootsy just walked in. The thunder begins. You know, you was in there making little crackling noises. When he turned that thing on and he get on it, which you don't do a lot, no, you know it just happened. Like, go sit down now. But he doesn't do it a lot. He wants you to pick it up. He wants you to get it. At least with me. You know, he's not that guy. Like, I need to do everything. I need to play all of this. One of the first things he taught me, one of the first words out of his mouth when I got to Cincinnati was, Wave, don't take all the credit if you cannot take all of the blame. And that put a lot on me. And George would say the same stuff. George's thing to me, because I used to write a lot with George and Gary, he would say, let's talk percentages instead of court dates. That was George's name. So they, you know, because they've done it enough, you know.
When did you first get to meet George?
We were in Detroit. We used to, what me and Bootsy would do, this was still early, no record deals, nothing. We were still early, and this was right after R&B Skeletons. George was working on projects. After R&B Skeletons, he had a bunch of deals going, and in Detroit, he probably had 5 studios running every day all over Detroit. So me and Bootsy would sit in the house and come up with tracks, just funk tracks over here, funk tracks over there. And then we basically go to Detroit with a handful of tracks and go from studio to studio to studio, where George had everybody spread out and give them tracks. And George would be with us. He'd be like, okay, that'll be good for Jimmy G and Tackheads. Let me get that. You got anything else like that, Mike? What, Bootsy, you got anything over here for Pretty Fat? Or this, you know, we're working on Andre Fox over here. You got anything for Andre Fox here? You know, so that's what it was like. So that's when I met George. So George came right out like, "What's up, Mikey? Man, you know, I didn't have no records or nothing." And it's funny. And so we go from studio to studio passing out tracks, and we come back the next day. They put up vocals on, you know, and Amp Fiddler was there. Amp was with us. We drop some off here because everywhere you go, there'd be a producer in there. So Amp would be here, Andre Fox would be here with a group of people, George would be here, so on, and Gary would be over here, and we just go broker and song. So when I met George, this was the orange and red braid George and R&B Skeletons George. So immediately we went and did a record in LA. That's what I was talking about. We went, this was just me and George and Gary. I wrote a song with Linda, which is Gary's wife. It was a track that we dropped off, and Linda picked it up and went home and wrote a song called Beautiful. You're so beautiful. Beautiful. And so Bootsy sent me to LA to go record the song with George and Gary. I remember we were at Sunset Studios. And we were in there recording it. Now the booth, like if I'm in the booth, they see me there. They're 5 rooms away. So they're seeing me on a TV screen. And I can see them on a TV screen. So I hit the first line. I'm singing and playing talk box, and it was my music track. And I indescribably divine fantasy. Yeah. That sounds good, man. Sounds good. And George would always say, yeah, man, that's dicking. That's dicking. I was like, okay, all right, we dicking. That means it's good. And so I'd go to the next line. You're so beautiful. Right. And he's like, that's good. That's good. And so remember, I can't see them all the time because it's all video feed. Gave it a minute, sung the next line. I was like, how was that, George? No answer. How's that, Gary? No answer. Engineer, what's going on? How's that? Hey, they left. Where'd they go? He said they said they had to go to another studio. They said, you got this, go on and finish. So I ended up finishing the record. And the record, it was my record. I had signed with MCA, right, for a 12-inch deal. And so I did the record, finished the record without them. I had all the talk boxes. Gary came in eventually and put some background on it. Yeah, this guy, I don't know if you ever heard the song. It's on YouTube. It's called Beautiful. Okay, so anyway, that was MCA. Now, around that time, I'm just going to continue on with this story since we're there. Around that time, I actually wanted to sign me with Columbia. And but I'd already had the 12-inch deal with MCA, but Columbia basically bought me out of the deal. But MCA is like, hey, this record is done and we paid for it. We want to put it out. And Columbia's like, well, you're not putting it out under Microwave. They're like, okay, we'll put it out under Gary Scheider. The song is out now under Gary Scheider with him not singing, not playing, not doing nothing on the song. Might be a background note or two. But it's a Gary Scheider record. And it's the only Gary Scheider record I'd ever heard. That's me. It's like, what happened there, man? Just the type of stuff that was going on back then, you know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Especially with P-Funk related things, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's a Microwave record. If anybody that listens now, go, oh, yeah, that's Microwave. This talk box, it's all my music, it's all my vocals. And I it's not something I go, oh, yeah, that's my record. No, I don't care what y'all do with it. Everything was jumping off like that back then. Because we had so much going on, man. We had so much. We were trying to bring we were trying to bring funk to a different place because it had died. You know, it's like, okay, let's electronify this thing. Let's take this. And that was me and Amp that had to do that. Amp Fiddler is like, I'm on Bootsy's team. Me and Bootsy gonna make it happen. And Amp and George. It didn't catch on. It didn't catch because right as it was starting to get that grip, there come New Edition, Bobby Brown, Belle Biv DeVoe, all of that stuff. Just Keith Sweat, Teddy Riley, take all that stuff and throw it out.
Yeah,
that's where it went. So yeah, we tried, but you know, it wasn't that good. I mean, we were doing the best we could, but you can't do funk electronically. It's impossible. It's not funk anymore.
So what went into you getting that Columbia deal? And, you know, how psyched were you to get it?
Oh, wow. Well, Here's that story. Like I said, I was with MCA first, and these were when they were giving 12-inch deals, and 12-inch deals we were paying about $12,000 to record because it costed about that much to record a record. Once we passed on that, we went to Columbia. I guess they offered a better deal, maybe 17,000 plus some publishing or something. Whatever the number was, it was better, and my team thought I should go over there and leave that record alone, or maybe they were offering a video. And so when I did the 12-inch with Columbia, it was a song called Misunderstood. That was the first single. And they heard the cassette and they were like, yeah, we like this. Bootsy wasn't even signed with anybody. We were both trying to get deals. So we got the deal and they're like, okay, go record it. We went in Cincinnati, recorded Misunderstood. At the time, they were like, hey, we're going to need a flip side. But mind you, I had already had that deal with MCA. So I'm trying to be the big man. I had a band in Cincinnati. I like what I'm going to do, band, because I got a deal with MCA. I'm going to go ahead and produce y'all record. So I produced this ballad. It was called Instant Replay on the band. Right. And so moving forward, that ballad is sitting at the studio, just sitting there. We're not doing nothing with it because it wasn't for me. Columbia said, okay, we got Misunderstood. Now we're going to need a flip side. I was like, man, they said, you're not going to the studio. You got to have something already. So I do, okay, here, take this. Here's Instant Replay. They heard that and they were like, uh-oh, uh-oh, you got to do an album now. You are really good. We like this. You're going to have to turn in an album. How quick can you do it? And me and Bootsy looked at each other and was like, how quick y'all need it? They were talking a lot of money. It's like 6 weeks. We need the album. Oh yeah, we're good. We can have it to you in 4.5. So we went off to Detroit and we recorded the album, which back then, you could get away with 6 or 7 songs. We went in, we took Instant Replay, we took the band off of it and put my stuff on there. Misunderstood, Star Search, Kiss. We had Bernie come in and do Kiss. We had Maceo come in and play sax. Bootsy was pulling out everything he could pull out, to keep the record alive, but not take me over to P-Funk because I didn't want to be a P-Funk artist. We had a few situations that we didn't agree on about some P-Funk because I didn't want to go that direction totally. I didn't, so, and it everything fixed itself. The record came out. They were trying to hurry up and get done with Misunderstood so they could push this Instant Replay. They spent a lot of money on the video. They spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on me. And for that record, for Columbia, and the list that you said you were in the industry, so there's always a priority list. It was George Michael's, Michael Jackson, Earth, Wind and Fire, Terrence Trent D'Arby, Michael Wave. That was the priority list at Columbia during that time, and everything was working. I toured. They put up money for promotion stuff. I had a big tour. Everything, they spent $80,000 on the video back then. That's what it took because it was film.
Let me ask you, what about your image at the time? How much of that came from you? How much was from management? What were you trying to project as the microwave persona?
Image was 80s. I was, like I always said, I was more of a rocker, so I wanted to have the long hair. I've always been that guy with the fringe, and the image was 100% me. They loved it, but at the same time, I wanted to go a different direction because now y'all did something to me that I wasn't trying to do. I wasn't trying to have an R&B ballad as my first hit record. So it's like it doesn't go with my image that I'm trying to put out there. So I want to do suits. I want to be kind of Morris, but not so cool, but just Morris, a more Liberace cool, And they were like, nah, you're going to outgrow your audience if you do that. So no, let's stick where you are. We're going to make that work. I was trying to be the Black David Lee Roth, They weren't here. They liked it, but they wanted it R&B. But then it didn't work for me with having a ballad as a record, So, we just went with what they went with. I loved it. It all worked out.
Well, and the sound-wise, like you said, you don't want to be completely identifiable with the P-Funk sound, So it was definitely a blend of some P-Funk, Prince, Roger, and what was happening at the time, and with some of that rock element into the pop and funk.
And that's where I came up. Yeah. So it worked, and the blend worked. Even the look said all of that. You know, it was a long road to get me to that point. You know, because I fought it. I wanted to take off the fringe and the blue jeans. I wanted to, but they got me together, and then we went on promotional tours, and everything happened, I think, organically the way it should have happened. I don't complain about any of it, but it's just here's the craziest part of all that. I don't know if you want to go to this part, but I'll segue you into this. Once that deal was done, I went back to Columbia to re-sign a second album, and they were pretty much like, okay, so sir, at the desk, she's like, some new lady, and she's like, hey sir, you're who? Michael Way, you know me? She's like, no, and I don't think nobody in this building know you either, because everybody's different from when you was in here. So I tell you what you do. You got your demo? I was like, yeah. She said, go on in here, go down that back stairs way, go down that elevator, go in the back, and you're gonna go around into the garage and go down there. You're gonna see a dumpster. Put your tape in there. Cut out the middleman, because that's all they're gonna do to it. This really happened, and I was so discouraged. It was like, oh my God, everything just ended. It's over. And I'm like, what happened? They were like,
chew you up and spit you out like that, man.
Yeah, man. It's like Bell Biv DeVoe, that whole New Jack Swing, all of that stuff just happened. And so I started, it's like, give us a record that sounds like that. So I went in and did it. And I never turned it in because I was so afraid after that. I'd never turn that record in, and then I'd go do another one, never turn that one in, I'd go do another one. Right now, I've got 13 albums done. Covers, album covers, artwork, liner notes, they're all done. Wow. So now I'm going to be releasing them. I've got one coming out in a couple of weeks called first releases from 1989. Each album has, this album is called Gonna Be One of Those Nights. And it's got a lot of New Jack Swing and a lot of R&B ballads. It's a beautiful record. I was just too afraid to ask somebody to sign me because I was shocked after that. It's like, what?
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkandstuff.net. Thank you very much.